Surprise! Coming at you with a surprise bonus tier list. This is a special tier list based on some audio adventures that occur specifically during Series 2 and Series 4 of the New Who series. Those adventures being the Rose Tyler Dimension Canon series. So those of you who have already seen all of New Who will already know that Rose Tyler left us in the Series 2 finale and returns in Series 4, right at the start of the series, and then continues throughout. And there's a whole storyline with her using the Dimension Cannon that she and Tortured of Her Earth have built to find the Doctor because all the lights of the universe are going out. Between Series 2 and 4, I thought I'd just fit these audio adventures in, because why not? It's a storyline that happens canonically to the series. I was going to do this whole thing wearing this leather jacket because Rose likes a bit of leather when she comes back, and I don't have any hoodies that match what she wears in Series 2, but this is actually really hot and quite uncomfortable, so I'm just gonna get changed into a cardi again. One sec. That's better. Nice and cozy in a cardigan again, just like we like. So there are 3 box sets to Rose Tyler Dimension Canon series, those being Dimension Canon, Otherworlds, and then Trapped. I'll be discussing all the episodes from every box set in this video. I will not be talking spoilers, so if you haven't listened to these box sets, I'm not going to be telling what happens in the story too much, so you can still go and listen to it if you want to, but obviously you know the end result because of Series 4 of New Who, so not much in the way of spoilers in general. But I will give you just a small taste of what each episode is about so that you can have a rough idea, again, if you haven't actually listened to any of them yet. These are all available on the Big Finish website, of course. It's me, you knew this was coming, I was gonna talk Big Finish at some point. Anyway, just some general notes on the series. The theme tune is really quite nice. It does remind me of the Missy one a little bit in the Missy audio series, just without the steampunky vibes. But I do like the Rose Tyler theme tune, that's quite nice. From the very first box set, it's confirmed to take place a year after the events of Doomsday. So this is happening concurrent to Series 3-ish of Doctor Who. And then obviously she comes back in Series 4. So this is literally just between Series 2 and Series 4 of Doctor Who. You don't really need any other context for it as long as you've watched Series 2 and Series 4 of Doctor Who. So you're fine. And effectively this whole series, every episode, you've got 4 in the first box set and 3 in the second and third box sets. Every episode is basically a version of Turn Left in some form. So they're all just big what ifs in the Doctor Who universe. And I do have some issues with it, which I will get into later on. Or right now. I don't like the fact that the entire multiverse is under threat in Series 4, Journey's End on Earth. It doesn't make sense to me. The reality bomb that Davros creates is for his universe. So why is the whole multiverse affected? They don't have Davros and Daleks apparently. Nothing in any of these series has any direct contact with aliens with regards to Rose and her part in it. There's no Dalek invasions, no nothing else. It doesn't really make sense to me that the whole multiverse would be at threat from Davros's reality bomb. So that is my issue in general with the box set, is that every Earth seems to be under threat from something completely different. I think there's one Earth that's mentioned as stars going out. Every other Earth just seems to have a completely different cataclysmic event that puts them under threat. So it doesn't even feel connected to the Series 4 storyline. So I'm very confused. But obviously it's a Series 4 thing that was mentioned canonically in the TV show. So I just deal with it. Another thing, just as an overall, as I've said, none of them have direct contact with aliens or anything. The what ifs are very much, what if this was a threat? What if that was a threat? There's no big differences to the worlds as such. There's one that has no technology and one that never really passed the medieval stage of architecture. That's about it. There's no other big differences with these worlds with regards to how they've developed and whatnot. So it all just feels that Rose is just going to just another version of her same reality as opposed to a different world altogether. I would have loved to have some worlds that were populated by alien species as well as humans. Throw some Silurians and Sea Devils in there. Have an Earth that actually accepted them during the unit era when the Silurians and the Sea Devil stories happened. Have an Earth where they were accepted and Rose just walks around on this Earth into the Silurian quarter of London or something and she's like, oh, this is new. Just have something different. That's what I'd have liked, because it wouldn't even have cost them anything to do that because it's all in audio form. With the series, obviously you have to have the makeup and the costumes and all that. There's nothing in this. You wouldn't have to worry about that. You just say they're a Silurian and you're done. So I just would have liked a bit more variety in the people that she meets as opposed to just humans all the time. And my last thing about the series as a whole, I think I'll save it for the end just because I may as well get into some of these episodes first and then discuss that last point at the end, because it kind of gives away something that doesn't happen in this series, and it's kind of a big point that I want to discuss, but I don't want to give spoilers, so it's going to be hard, and I feel like I should just wait to the end, see how much time I've actually spent on this, and then give that point. So I'll come back to that. Let us begin with series 1 of the Rose Tyler Dimension Canon series, and the first episode is called The Endless Night. So this one I gave a 5 to. These aren't going to be used for my scarf project. If anyone is following both my tier list and my scarf project videos, these aren't going to be used for my scarf project. These are just bonus ones. But since my reading tracker counts audiobooks and the audio dramas count as audiobooks, I'm including the ratings that I gave them on there. So I did give this one a 5. I really enjoyed this story. It was a really nice grounded story to start the Rose Tyler series, and a lot of it has to do with Pete and Jackie, because I forgot to mention that Rose isn't doing this alone. Rose Tyler is with her Jackie and obviously her alternate Pete in the Earth 2 of the Hooniverse, and she goes and finds the Jackies and Petes of all these other Earths. Why? I don't know, probably something to do with the cost of having loads of different actors, and it's just easier to have Pete and Jackie. Also, in episode 1, in this particular episode, she finds an alternate version of Clive Finch, from the first episode of New Who in 2005. Rose finds an alternate version of him and brings him on board into her Earth and finding the Doctor throughout the Earths. And I do like that she remembers him and goes to him, because she's like, right, where do I go to find the Doctor? Let's go to the man who might know. So she goes to Clive, and I do quite like that she remembered him in that way. This does carry on into my point that I'm going to bring up at the end of this video. There doesn't seem to be any Time Lords or Gallifrey or many aliens at all in this whole series, and I feel like for alternate worlds there would be. I don't see that there's only one single universe that has the Doctor and Time Lords and Gallifrey and all of that. It just doesn't seem realistic in this universe to me. You know, I feel like there should be more worlds that have Time Lord interventions and other alien interventions and stuff like that. I don't see why there's only one single universe that has Gallifrey and a Doctor and Time Lords and all of this. As I've said, she goes to find Pete and Jackie a lot, and I do think that it's odd that she goes to find her parents all the time, and they are often involved in certain things which help the plot, but I just don't understand that. Clive makes sense to me because he's who she found in the episode Rose, and it worked because he helped her find the Doctor just like a little bit, but her going to find her parents all the time and then getting attached all the time, it just doesn't make sense to me. I feel like it would have been helpful if she had been finding alternate versions of Torchwood and alternate versions of UNIT and stuff like that, and finding out what they know. Go to the covert organisations and find out what they know and help that way, rather than finding your family every time. It just doesn't, it was weird to me. I get that they have the regular actors, and yes, I do want Jackie and Pete and Clive and whatnot in the series, but it just doesn't make sense to me that she always went after her parents. Final point is that this story does introduce the darkness that Rose mentions to Donna in series 4, so that storyline is a pivotal point in this series as well. It is the reason Rose leaves her Earth and goes off to find the Doctor in the first place. This is all happening before she actually gets to the main Earth in series 4 and finds Donna. And Donna actually does come up in this series, not as a character played by anyone, but the name Donna is mentioned throughout the whole series, all 3 series, and the name Donna Noble as well, specifically with the last name, all mentioned throughout. Because of the nature of this series, every story kind of has a really bleak ending, and this one especially I thought was really sad but really sweet, and I really loved the way they did it with the characters involved. I think it was really sweet, and it almost made me cry on the second listen. So I do think that this is a really fantastic way to start the Rose Tyler Dimension Canon series as a whole, and I just really like the episode. So I'm going to put it into fantastic. This story is basically Rose's first adventure into an alternate universe other than Earth 2, and it's a world where the sun is going out. They're in an endless night because they're all going to die, and Rose has to find out what she can and get out after the sun's gone and before she also perishes. The next episode is The Flood. Now, I gave this one a 3, and I do think it's quite an interesting episode. It's a world where they sort of didn't go past the 80s in terms of technology, because technology has been banned. I can't remember why. I can never remember why technology was banned in this universe, but something happened and they banned technology. They have books, letters, radio. I think they go up to the radio and then that's about it. But I do think that's quite an interesting setting for a story, because at least that is something different while still being very familiar. Everything else about the world is the same, and it takes Rose and Clive, who has now joined Rose on these adventures, a little time to figure out that, hey, there's no mobile phones, there's no computers, there's no internet. That's quite interesting, I think. There's an alternate version of Rose in this one called Rob because he is a man and he's dating Mickey, and Rose fancies Rob before she finds out that he is actually a version of her if she were born with a different body part. So, thought that was quite a funny moment, really. This is the story that starts the mentions of Donna, and as I say, that continues throughout the whole series. I think that's really good. It's a nice way of incorporating the storyline from series 4 of the show into this one and giving this a reason for being. Also, with this one, Rose did feel quite doctory. She felt like she was being the doctor. It's like in, I think it's the Impossible Planet 2-parter in series 2, when the doctor's down in the pit and she's sort of left in charge and she just sort of gives everyone roles to do, gets stuff done, and it really does show how well she's gone on since she met the doctor. And she does that in this as well, where she just sort of takes control, devises a plan, enacts a plan, takes Clive and Rob along, makes sure they're doing something. But then obviously the plans go awry and she just wings it, and she's just enjoying the situation. She feels very much like the 10th Doctor in this one. And it is good, but I also think that as much as I like Clive, his part of this wasn't really necessary. It was nice character work, but for the plot, it wasn't really necessary. So I'm gonna put this one into upgrade in progress. The next episode is Ghost Machines. This one also got a 5, and I did really like this one. This has a very interesting concept. So Rose meets the Jackie Tyler of this world, who is the widow of the Pete Tyler, and the Pete Tyler died in the opening scene of the story, and it's all very, very interesting. He had a company called Soul Tech, where effectively you put your soul into, you put your mind into an object. I'm explaining this terribly. All electronics use the mind of a dead human being. Think Cybermen, but if they were hair straighteners and blenders, okay? Every electric object in the house and cars and all sorts, they're people, or they were people, but they know who they are. Saying it out loud, it sounds weird, but when you hear the people in the audio, it's kind of harrowing, to be honest. It's very dystopian. It's torturous for the people in there, like with the Cybermen, when the emotional inhibitor stops working or is stopped by the Doctor and they sort of understand what they are and what they've become and what's happened to them. It's like that, but again, with hair straighteners. I mean, imagine waking up and finding out you're a pair of hair straighteners. That's bound to do some damage to your psyche. And unfortunately, these people still have minds. It's weird and worrying. It feels like a Black Mirror episode. And it does remind me a little bit of that Girl in the Fireplace epilogue that they brought out for the Doctor Who lockdown back in 2020. There's an epilogue made for the Girl in the Fireplace, and that was harrowing. It was a version of Renette's brain that had been scanned. When the Clockwork Droids had scanned her brain, and it was put in the ship as just the scan rather than the actual brain. But she still felt alive. She still thought she was there. She was so confused and so sad, and it was horrible. Why did you write that, Stephen Moffat, that I could have lived with the Girl in the Fireplace, but now I'm just sad every time I think about it? So yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. There is a post theme tune scene in this one, and I absolutely love that. You think the story is tied up when Rose leaves, and then the post theme scene tells you it wasn't tied up and this is what's happening now. And it's very dramatic. Very, very dramatic. So with all that said, and I can't go into any spoilers, I'm going to put this one into Fantastic as well. It's deep and depressing, it makes you think, and it just feels like a Black Mirror episode in the best ways. So yeah, I'm putting it into Fantastic. The box set ends with The Last Party on Earth, which I did give a 2 to. This one wasn't my favourite. This felt like a character study on characters we hadn't met yet and will never meet again, and that I didn't care about. When you have characters in an audio drama in a single episode, you've got to have meaningful interaction with the main characters in order for me to feel something for these side characters, because you don't know when they're going to come up again and who they are. I'm a very visual person, so listening to audio dramas is quite difficult for me personally to differentiate between a lot of voices. It's only when you have voices that are very, very distinct, or voices like Billie Piper's, who I know because I've seen her in the show, that I can differentiate easier. Otherwise, it's kind of hard for me to differentiate between voices. Because I'm a visual person, I rely on the visuals, which is really hard when you can't see very well. That's why we wear glasses. But yeah, so it is hard for me to care about characters who I can't see when they're secondary characters and they have a little storyline that I just don't care about. It has nothing to do with the main story of Rose and what she's doing. This just felt like a sort of weird add-on. The basic story of this episode is that everyone on this earth that Rose and Jackie this time go to, they know that the world is about to die. I think a meteor is going to hit it or something like that. They know the world's about to die and they're just having a party. The Power Estate is having a party because of course they land in the Power Estate. But yeah, overall it's just a bit bland. I don't really care about the party, don't really care about the earth. I didn't care about the side characters having their storyline. There's a nice little bit in it that has Odessa, Mickey Smith's mum. It goes into a little bit more about Mickey's backstory with regards to his mum. In the series 2 Sideman two-parter, we didn't really get the whole story from Rose when she told the doctor, and I understand now why they couldn't have done that. Rewatching that episode after re-listening to this story, I get what Rose was saying now. But yeah, it's sad. Jackie meets Odessa and is very much in shock about it all. That scene I liked. The scenes of Jackie and Odessa I liked. Everything else was bland to me. Thing is, I don't want to put it in Scar of Sewers because it wasn't a bad episode. I just didn't personally care about any of the characters. So I think I'll put it in Doctor Who because I don't really remember what the storylines were that mattered. So yeah, that can go in Doctor Who. So that's the end of the first box set. I'll do a quick stats for this just for funsies. The average score was a 3.70 and the most common score for this box set was a 5. So I do think that overall it was a good box set and I would highly recommend anyone to listen to this. It is good, it is sad, so be ready for that. The thing is, every single world in this whole series is at threat, and Rose has to go and meet these people in different worlds, try and save them even though their world is dying regardless. Because no matter what Davros does with that reality bomb, these worlds are all still gonna die because they're all dying from different things. It's bizarre. I probably should have mentioned the flood one. It has not stopped raining since the 80s, so that's the whole point of the whole flood thing. It's not a sequel to The Waters of Mars. And with that, we will move on to the second box set of the Rose Twilight Dimension canon series, which is Other Worlds. So in this box set, sadly, we've said goodbye to Pete Tyler. He is no longer in the series. He was only in the first box set. But we still have Jackie and Clive, and that we like. The first episode is called Saltwater. So in this story, Rose goes to another world where basically it's a never-ending missile crisis across the globe because someone or something is stealing all the salt water out of the oceans, which is changing everything about how the ocean works, and all the boats on these oceans in the locations where the salt is being taken from the water are crashing and being destroyed. People are dying. It's all very horrible. And everyone's blaming each other. There is a twist with this one with who is doing the taking of the salt from the water, and I will not say what that is. But Rose tries to speak to the Prime Minister or the President of Britain to get them to end this crisis, all of that. So she's trying to save them, and she meets an alternate version, again, of Clive. It is an interesting story, but overall it hits a bit too close to home with, well, global powers threatening each other, and the people who suffer are the regular people of the world, which is the majority of the world. So yeah, this one on my second listen hit a bit too close to home for me, but I still did give it a 4. I do think it was a good episode. I just struggled getting through it because of certain global events and politics and the crushing anxiety of this daily life on this world. There's a nice bleak twist at the end which links directly back into Turn Left as well, so that's quite nice. I like the fact again that we are linking this series directly into series 4 of Doctor Who. It is very clearly linked from the beginning to the end. It's very clearly linked between the end of series 2 and the beginning of series 4. It's very good. I like it. I forgot to mention at the start, I'm not doing MVPs or quotes of the season / episode for these ones, but whilst I'm not doing that, I do have one lovely quote here. Well, I say lovely. I do have one quote here that stood out to me while listening, and I just thought, may as well share it. As I say, people are at Cold War throughout the world, and the Pete and Jackie of this particular world were protesting against all of the governments using missiles and threatening each other and all of this, and they were killed off before the episode started, and Rose finds out in the end it was by a pro-war group. And when she finds out about this, someone tells her that people who are bloodthirsty will find any excuse to spill blood. Ain't that just so very correct? This is why it hit too close to home for me. Anyway, Saltwater was a good story. I just wish that the twist of the story had been delved into more than the missile crisis politics of it all, because I had all that in the first box set with everything being very human Earth-based. So I'm going to put this into upgrade in progress. Next up is Now is the New Dark. This one also got a 4, and again it's another decent story. It's set in a medieval world because they never developed germ theory. Now, this is where my issues with this episode start, is just the basis of the healthcare system affects the fact that everything is medieval. So they still have cobblestone streets, thatched houses. If you walk down a really old street of York or maybe Warwick somewhere, they have those old streets that look very Tudor-esque. Yeah, that's what this story is. Everything is still very much old-timey streets. No electricity, no anything else. They didn't get past the medieval era in any kind of development, including healthcare. And that is the main basis of the story, and that's why I think it's odd, because I feel like they could have just done this with a hospital scenario and Rose getting very confused by the fact they're talking about humours rather than bacteria and stuff like that, and she would be like, wait, what's going on? That would be better, I think, than everything still being in the medieval period. Whilst I love a historical, we know I love my historicals, we know this. I just think that for this particular story, it doesn't make sense to me as to why the non-development of germ theory caused no development anywhere else in the world. Not architecture, not technology, nothing else. That's what confuses me. And because of this whole non-germ theory discovery, there's an assessor who is a main sort of antagonist in the episode. It's like a social credit system with her assessments. She just gives you a humour as what you are, and then she's like, oh well, you're melancholic, so you're going to go to the melancholic quarter. Toodles. The alternate version of Jackie is her assistant in this one, and at one point you hear her threatening Jackie to give her a different diagnosis if Jackie doesn't do something that she wants. It's very, very much power hungry, and I don't like it. But there is a moment where Clive, who joins Rose on this adventure, he turns it back around on this assessor to show her how ridiculous her diagnoses are, and I do quite like that. I think that was a really good scene. The main thing about the story to note, though, is that it's a murder mystery. Someone is killing melancholics, and Clive, oh no, is diagnosed as a melancholic and is sent to the murder room. Clive could be murdered and he could be accused of the murder. I do like that, but again, the assessor, there's so many people who are just stupid in this because they're not looking at any evidence, they're not doing anything, and it annoyed me, but it was fun. It annoyed me in a fun way. And of course, Rose does solve the murder and saves the day. Well, sort of. But yeah, I think I'm gonna put this one into Fantastic. I wouldn't say it's better than the other two in Fantastic, but I do think it's a really good story, and it is one where the world is different enough that it feels like an alternate version of Earth. Whereas in the other ones, it's just like, it's Earth. This one feels like an alternate version of Earth because they haven't developed past the medieval period. I do quite like that aspect of it. Even though it didn't make sense to me, I did like that aspect of it, so I'm putting it in Fantastic. And the last episode of this box set is called The Rogue Planet. There's a scene in this one where Rose says, where are we? And this woman, Femi, says, the Power Estate. And Rose goes, of course we are. And if that doesn't just sum up my thoughts on every single Ninth Doctor and Rose Big Finish adventure so far, and that should probably date the filming of this video. So similar to the finale of the last box set, The Last Party on Earth, this one is a more contained family drama at its core, but I really like this one. This has Rose and Jackie going to an alternate Earth, and this alternate Earth has an alternate Rose and an alternate Jackie. So you've got Rosie and Jackie Prentice, who is a TV star. And I do like it because our Jackie goes to meet Rosie without knowing. She's trying to get a phone because she and Rose got separated right at the beginning of the adventure, which again, I quite like. And she meets Rosie at the cafe that Rosie owns. There's a lot of family drama and Jackie's able to help Rosie in that as well, which I really like. Rose, meanwhile, is having a different adventure with Rosie's son, because Rose wakes up in a playground at the Powell estate and is taken back to Rosie's flat where her baby is. Someone was babysitting and they found Rose thinking it was Rosie and just left her to it. So Rose is now babysitting for her counterpart's baby. I will say as well, both Camille Coduri and Billie Piper used different voices for the alternate versions of Jackie and Rosie, and I really liked that. I thought that really helped to differentiate between the four characters who were all played by the same two people, so that was quite handy. And I should say the Rosie in this story went to university, so there's a big difference with her whole life as opposed to Rose's. And I do wonder, because she got her A-levels, did that mean that she didn't get the bronze in gymnastics? There is a tremendous cliffhanger in this episode, which leads on to the final box set of the series, and it's really, really good. I really like it. And there's also a mention of Donna Noble. Someone has spoken to this Donna Noble in this alternate world, and this Donna had a blonde woman find her, and the blonde woman was called Bad Wolf, and she warned her of the end of the world. So it kind of, again, really leans into the turn left narrative, and it makes you think, is it a bootstrap paradox? Because Rose is like, oh, okay, I've got to find this Donna Noble then, because Bad Wolf, that's what I was putting out into the universe in the last episode. Okay, it may not have been the last episode, but it was an episode when Rose was just typing Bad Wolf, thinking, hopefully it'll just get out into the universe. So this episode goes a little way to explain why Rose knew what to do with Donna, and why she said Bad Wolf to her. Bootstrap paradox. But anyway, I think I'm going to put this one again into Fantastic. I really liked the episode. I thought the family drama was really good. The two versions of Jackie and the two versions of Rose were both very distinct from each other, and they were really great characters. I just enjoyed it all around. And that's the end of the second box set. And just looking at the stats, the mean score was 4.50 and the average was a 4. And now we come to the final box set of the series, which is Rose Tyler Dimension Canon Trapped. So I should probably just say the cliffhanger of the last box set comes into play here, and Rose finds herself trapped in another universe all alone without her dimension disc because it's not working, it's broken, and she spends the next 3 episodes, this entire box set, on this world. And she is there for some time. Episode 2 mentions that she's there for at least a week before episode 2 starts. I'm not sure how long it is until episode 3 starts, so she is there for some time. Usually she only has a couple of hours to a couple of days in these different worlds before the Dimension Canon has to send her back. But in this one, she's there for quite a long time, weeks, maybe months. This is my least favourite of all the box sets. It's not bad, I just didn't enjoy it as much because there's another character introduced who I just didn't like, and they're in the whole thing. And also I didn't like this world, I didn't like this universe. And this is my issue with the idea of a serialised season of Doctor Who. With an anthologised season, you can have all these different adventures, all these different genres, got something for everyone, you know? With a serialised season, like this, if it's just from one location, one place, and I don't like the story, I kind of check out, you know? People are going to check out of it. Whereas if you have different adventures, then there's something for everyone eventually. But with this, I didn't like the story that much, so I really didn't want to listen to it again. I did give it higher marks on this second listen than I did on my reading track the first time round, but yeah, this is still my least favourite of the box set. So something to mention about this box set, and this world specifically, is that they have telepaths, except they're not telepaths. They're called telepathics and pathics for short, but they're not telepaths. Nothing about them is telepathic. I don't understand it. They have visions. They're prophets, not telepaths. They see the future. They can't read people's minds and send thoughts to each other. I think in the last episode that does happen. The last episode was a bit confusing to me, so I don't know fully if that's what's happening. Especially, again, it's audio form, you can't see it. But I think in the last episode, if I remember correctly and I understood it correctly, there were actual telepathic things going on in that episode. But generally, the pathics in this series just have visions. That is what they are known for. They are not known for reading minds or sending thoughts to other people. It's people who have visions. So they should be called prophets, not telepathics. I don't understand why people call... Telepathy is literally, to put it simply, mind reading. I don't know why people keep thinking it's something that it's not. It's really annoying to me. I see it in a lot of different media. It's weird. I was watching something else and they said that someone was telepathic, but they were telekinetic. Completely different thing. Just because you're one doesn't mean you're the other. Sorry. Rant over. I don't know why I went on that rant. As I said, there's a character in this that I don't much like. Their name is Danny. They are not an alternate Rose. They're sort of a sibling to Rose. So in the first episode, which I'll get into in a second, don't worry, there's an alternate Jackie who is one of these pathics, and her child is called Danny, and Rose meets Danny, I think, as the first person she meets in this box set. And Danny sort of takes care of Rose, but also doesn't like her or trust her. And when I first listened to this, I hated Danny, okay? They annoyed me a lot. On second listen, on the first episode, I wasn't sure why that was. I thought, okay, Danny's alright. I don't know why I didn't like Danny. On the second episode, I understood. That's why I didn't like Danny. Last thing to say as an overall about this box set. It had to come up eventually, didn't it? The big danger of this universe is an entropy wave coursing through and devouring people where it can. Someone in the first episode randomly gets devoured by it when it's not anywhere near them. It's very, very confusing, but it's a thing. However, what I want to say is Because of this entropy wave, this made me place this episode in the same universe as the Masterful universe. And no one can tell me otherwise, because none of this is actually fully canon, so no one can tell me that it's not the Masterful universe. In the Masterful universe, there is an entropy wave destroying everything. It could be the same universe, that's all I'm saying. This is just the Earth of that universe, okay? That was an entire universe in Masterful. This is just the Earth, so I'm just saying, it could be the same one. Though it would have been really fun had it actually been the same universe and Rose had to go up against the Master, any of the versions that are in Masterful, doesn't really matter. And then she finds out what the Master did to the Doctor of that universe. That would have been... It would have been a pretty epic showdown when she finds out. So, yeah. Anyway, on to the first episode of this box set, because I keep going on. The first episode is called Sink or Swim. This one I gave a 4-2 on my second listen, and it's alright. It was an enjoyable alright. Basically, Rose ends up on a boat in the middle of the ocean, found by Danny, and her Dimension Cannon disc is not only broken, but missing. Someone has taken it from her. As I said, Danny takes her under her wing, and she finds out about Jackie, the Pathic, and Jackie makes Rose promise to take care of Danny, which she does throughout this box set. I will say though, Rose is on absolute top form in this episode and the box set as a whole. Rose really has come a long way as a character in the show, but also in this box set as well. She knows what she's doing and she's going to do it. And I really do like how Rose has been written throughout this whole series. And I do think that being stranded on this one world really shows Rose's strengths as a character. As for the episode itself, I think I'm going to put it into upgrade in progress. The second episode is called The Lower Road. This one also got a 4, and this is a nice moral dilemma episode, which really does feel, again, Doctor Who-y at its core, even though the episode itself doesn't feel like a Doctor Who episode. It's also where I start to really dislike Danny as a character, because they act like a complete teenager. I don't know how old they are, but it's never said how old they are. They're called a child at one point, but I'm fairly certain they're at least a young adult, 18, 19 maybe, but they really suck. I really didn't like Danny in this episode at all. They act like a petulant child. So as I said, it's very morally complex, this one. Basically, Rose and Danny go through something and from that find the High Road, which is a high-rise tower block, and it's a nice little community, but the leader of the community, Lara, who is very, very complex as a character, and I do love that characterisation of her. She was brilliantly written and performed. She is looking for her daughter who has gone missing, and Rose and Danny try and help her, only to find out some shady stuff. Now, Rose was sceptical of this community at first, and she grew to appreciate them. I remain sceptical of them. I wasn't trusting anyone here. Rose should have known better. My issue is that Rose has been in this world for a week now. As they say in the beginning of the episode, it's been a week since the Sink or Swim episode. And she is the one who has been telling Clive and Jackie and Pete throughout the whole series not to get attached, because the people they meet are not their people, they are not the same person. And yet in this box set, she gets really attached to Danny. She treats Danny as if they are her own sibling for real, and it's just not the case. Danny gets annoyed with that, which is understandable because I get annoyed about that. But the way Danny reacts, I don't like. It's, again, petulant child. But Rose getting attached to everyone that she meets and desperately trying to save them. While it's in character for Rose, it's also annoying because she's the one who's been telling everyone not to get attached. And she knows that all the worlds are at stake and she can't stay anywhere. She's got to find the Doctor, that's her plan. And something that happens at the end of this episode is that Rose tries to trade the Dimension disc she found at the end of the last episode for Danny's life. If Rose doesn't get that Dimension disc to work and travel back to her world and then try and find the Doctor, she's screwed. The whole multiverse is screwed. So I don't understand what her plan was there. She'd save Danny's life momentarily and then they both die. So it doesn't make any sense to me. It was really annoying. Anyway, this episode was alright, as I say. It was a nice morally complex episode, and I'm gonna put it... I think I'll put it into upgrade in progress. And we're on to the last episode of this box set and the series, and that is called The Good Samaritan. I gave this one a 3. I thought it was okay, but the main story of it was kind of dull, to be honest. All the bits with Rose and the character she was interacting with, I thought were alright, but the Danny bits of it I didn't care about. They get split up in this one. They go to this tech haven, that's the premise of the episode. They go to this tech dome haven and they get split up because Danny's a Pathic and Rose isn't. The Pathics all go to their own dome to be used by the community. The community, by the way, all have tattoos on them for every good deed they do, and if you don't get enough tattoos, you get booted from the dome during a storm of some kind. They wait until the point where you're going to die and then they push you out, sort of thing. It's very cruel and I don't like it. And it does make the leader a complete hypocrite. The ending of the story though is very neatly tied into Turn Left, and I really do like it. I think it ties up the whole story of the Dimension Canon series with a very satisfying bow, and I do think it's a very well done ending. I think it's a very nice conclusion to the series. But overall, I think I'm going to put this one into Wibbly Wobbly. It could go into Doctor Who because I don't really remember most of the episode, even though this is the most recent one I listened to. But yeah, I think I'm going to put it into Wibbly Wobbly because the Rose bits, as I say, I liked. It just didn't like the Pathic side of it with Danny and the Pathics. I just thought that was a bit meh. But the Rose bits I quite liked. And the ending itself was, as I say, a very nice conclusion. So I'm going to put it into Wibbly Wobbly. And that ends the third box set of the Rose Tired Dimension Canon series. And looking at the stats, the mean score was a 3.77 and the most common score was a 4. So overall, a fairly decent series. And here's how all the box sets in this series stack up against each other. Now, I did say at the beginning of this video that there was a point that I wanted to come back to and say at the end. So this is the point where it's not a spoiler, but it could be spoiler adjacent. So if you want to jump off now, that's absolutely fine. But having said that, I think it's less spoilery than the things I've already said in the video, so up to you. Now, my main biggest issue with the series as a whole is that there is no Doctor or Time Lord in it. I've already mentioned that there should be other Time Lords, a Gallifrey and all that in these other universes, whether they're seen or not, but it just feels like it's such contained worlds in every single episode. It feels like every episode is just Earth and there's nothing else, apart from one episode where it seemed that there could be something out there, but most of them just seem like Earth. And I just wish that we had have had another box set, maybe between box sets 2 and 3, which was called The Wrong Doctor. And here's my pitch for that. Here's what I think should have happened. It would have been really fun if Rose had have gone to another world and there had have been another Doctor. Not David Tennant, not anyone we know, a completely new actor playing the Doctor, but it's a different version of the Doctor. Like in the Unbound universe where you've got, I think it's David Warner plays the Doctor there. Like that, just another version of the Doctor in a different universe. I think that would have been great to see, and she could have helped him as his guest companion for the episode sort of thing in him saving the world. And he could have helped her to get to the next location. Maybe that could have been what went wrong with the disc. Or this box set could have been the last box set as she's getting closer, and the little ending for the third episode of series 3 could have been here and the end of that one instead. But either way, I think there should have been other Doctors that she met. It would have been really nice to have a couple of episodes with different Doctors, maybe an episode where the Doctor's actually evil. What if there's an episode where the Doctor is actually the Master and the Master is actually the Doctor, and Rose, I know she doesn't know who the Master is, but what if she finds the Doctor, says all these lovely things about him, and he's like, oh, okay, may as well have some fun, I'll play with you, human, why not? And it turns out he's effectively the master of that world, but he calls himself the Doctor, and vice versa. And then Rose has to realise that he's evil. Maybe she gets saved by the master of that universe, who grabs her hand and says run, and then she finds out that he's actually the real Doctor of the universe. Or maybe the Doctor was the master. I think I said that a bit weird, but you get the point, I'm sure. The Doctor is the Master, the Master's the Doctor. One of them's pretending to be someone he's not, that sort of thing. I just think that would be quite an interesting concept for an episode anyway. And if Rose had been in the middle of it whilst looking for the Doctor, it would have worked nicely. And again, there could have been another episode where she meets someone called the Professor, for instance. It doesn't have to be called the Doctor. It could be the Professor, and he's the Time Lord who helps out, you know? I just wish that we had have had something different in it rather than just humans on Earth all the time. Go to an Earth that has a Time Lord. Why not? So I think what I would do is have the first episode be the Professor. So it's another Time Lord who's called the Professor. And then in the second episode, it would be potentially the same actor as the Professor playing the Doctor. So Rose is like, all right, I'm getting closer to the Earth I want to be in. And she can help them both with saving their respective Earths from bad events, that sort of thing. And then the third episode could be the Doctor is the Master, the Master's the Doctor. And Rose has to go through an emotional journey finding out that her Doctor is actually evil and the Master's the one who's actually the Doctor. That sort of thing. I just think that would be quite a nice little box set they could have done. Again, called The Wrong Doctor. Yeah, But that is everything. That is the Rose Tide Dimension Canon series completely tier listed now. I think I have said all my most spoiler-free thoughts that I can, and I would urge everyone to go and listen to this series because it is a very good series. Billie Piper, Camille Coduri, Sean Dingwall and Mark Benson all do a fantastic job in this series, and I would highly recommend these episodes to everyone. Of course, I do understand Big Finish is not completely accessible to everyone because money, but if you do have the funds, I would recommend getting these box sets. And Big Finish always have sales on, so just put your notifications on and wait for a sale. But that is the end of this special surprise episode. Thank you for sticking around this long, and I will see you next time in a couple of days for the Series 4 tier list.